For years, many people with type 2 diabetes have been told the same thing: stay away from cheese. And the moment they hear that diagnosis, they start cleaning out the fridge. The cheddar goes, the mozzarella disappears, even Parmesan gets thrown away, because somewhere along the way, people became convinced that all cheese automatically means high blood sugar, clogged arteries, and worsening diabetes. But that's not the full story. In fact, some cheeses affect blood sugar far differently than most carbohydrate-heavy foods people eat every day. And in the right amount, certain types may actually help with appetite control, slower digestion, and steadier glucose levels after meals. Now, this does not mean you should eat unlimited cheese, and it definitely doesn't mean every processed cheese product is healthy. But if you choose carefully, cheese may not be the enemy people think it is. Today, I'm breaking down 5 cheeses that tend to work best for people managing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, especially adults over 50. And make sure you stay until the end, because the number 1 cheese on this list contains a nutrient researchers are studying closely for insulin function, bone health, and even artery protection. And if you enjoy simple videos that break down diabetes and nutrition in a practical way, go ahead and subscribe now, because we cover topics like this every week. But before we get into the list, there's something most people completely misunderstand about cheese and blood sugar. Cheese usually doesn't spike glucose quickly the way bread, soda, or sugary snacks do. The effect is slower, much slower. That's why some people check their blood sugar 1 hour after eating cheese and think, wow, this had 0 effect. But then later that evening, their numbers creep upward and they don't understand why. Here's what's happening. The protein and fat in cheese digest gradually over several hours, and part of that protein can eventually be converted into glucose by the liver. The rise is usually smaller than what you'd get from refined carbs, but timing matters more than people realize. Think about it this way. Sugary foods burn, like dry leaves. Fast flame, fast crash. Cheese burns more like charcoal. Slow, steady, long-lasting. And this is exactly why portion size matters. A moderate amount of cheese alongside vegetables or protein may help you feel fuller longer and reduce overeating later in the day. But huge portions can absolutely work against your goals. That balance is the key. Now, let's get into the list. Number 5 is mozzarella. And I'm starting here because it's one of the easiest options to find in almost any grocery store. Fresh mozzarella is relatively low in carbohydrates, contains a decent amount of protein, and tends to be less heavy than many aged cheeses. But what makes it interesting is the fermentation process. Fresh mozzarella contains beneficial bacteria that may support gut health, and researchers are becoming increasingly interested in how the gut microbiome affects insulin sensitivity and inflammation. A healthier gut environment appears to help the body regulate blood sugar more efficiently over time. One of my older patients started adding small portions of fresh mozzarella to lunch with tomatoes, olive oil, and vegetables several times a week instead of processed snack foods. And what surprised her most wasn't just her glucose readings. It was the fact that her afternoon cravings became much easier to manage. Now, one thing to watch with mozzarella is sodium. Some brands contain far more salt than others, so always read the label if you're also managing high blood pressure, and avoid heavily processed cheese sticks loaded with additives. That's a completely different product nutritionally. Number 4 is cottage cheese. This one works differently. Cottage cheese is powerful mainly because of how filling it is. It's high in protein, relatively low in calories, and can help keep hunger under control for hours. And honestly, for many people with type 2 diabetes, the biggest blood sugar problems don't come from dinner. They come from random snacking later in the day. The crackers, the cookies, the just one-bite moments that turn into 500 extra calories. A high-protein snack like cottage cheese, may help reduce that cycle. But be careful here. A lot of flavored cottage cheese products contain added sugars, fruit syrups, or sweetened mixes that completely change the nutritional profile. Plain is usually best. Add your own berries, cinnamon, or nuts instead. And by the way, if you're finding this video helpful so far, subscribe before you forget. It really helps the channel and lets me keep making evidence-based health videos like this. Number 3 is feta cheese, and this one surprises a lot of people. Authentic feta is traditionally made from sheep's milk or a mix of sheep and goat milk, which contains different fatty acid profiles compared to standard cow's milk cheese. Some studies suggest these fats may be associated with improved metabolic health and better insulin sensitivity. Feta is also strongly flavored, which is actually helpful, because you usually need less of it to feel satisfied. A small amount added to salads, eggs, or roasted vegetables can add flavor without requiring huge portions. The downside: sodium. Feta is stored in brine, so if you have high blood pressure or kidney concerns, portion control becomes extremely important. Number 2 is ricotta, and this cheese is interesting because it's naturally rich in whey protein. Whey protein has been studied extensively for its effects on satiety and post-meal glucose control. Some research suggests consuming whey protein before or with meals may help reduce blood sugar spikes after eating. That's one reason ricotta can work well as part of a balanced breakfast or afternoon snack. Try it with herbs, nuts, or a small portion of whole grain toast instead of pairing it with sugary pastries or sweet spreads. And finally, number 1, aged Parmesan. This is probably the cheese people least expect to see on a diabetes-friendly list. But aged Parmesan is extremely low in carbohydrates, naturally high in protein, and because of the long aging process, it contains very little lactose. What really makes researchers interested in Parmesan is vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 appears to play a role in how the body handles calcium, and emerging research is exploring its connection to insulin sensitivity, artery health, and bone metabolism. That's especially important for older adults managing diabetes, because cardiovascular disease and bone loss often become bigger concerns with age. Now, before you run to the grocery store, there's something important you need to remember. Not all cheese products are equal. Highly processed cheese slices, ultra-processed cheese spreads, and many packaged shredded cheeses often contain added starches, oils, preservatives, and hidden carbohydrates. Always check the ingredient list. The fewer ingredients, the better. And one more thing, pay attention to your own body. Some people tolerate dairy very well. Others notice changes in cholesterol, digestion, or water retention. So monitor your glucose. Follow up with your doctor and let your actual lab work guide your decisions. At the end of the day, diabetes management is rarely about completely banning one food forever. It's usually about quality, quantity, timing, and consistency. And sometimes the foods people fear most are not nearly as harmful as the ultra-processed foods quietly filling the rest of the plate. If you made it this far, first of all, thank you for watching all the way through. And if you want more videos that simplify diabetes, nutrition, healthy aging, and blood sugar control without all the confusing medical jargon, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications before you leave. Now tell me in the comments, which of these cheeses surprised you the most? And which one would you actually try? And if you know someone who stopped eating cheese completely after a diabetes diagnosis, send them this video. They may look at their refrigerator very differently after today.